is Amy Coney Barrett the best choice for America and for the Supreme Court? I thought we'd put that question to GianCarlo Canaparo, who's a legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Welcome back to the show, GianCarlo.
Thanks for having me, Lars.
So tell us about your view of Judge Amy Coney Barrett and her nomination to the U.S. Supreme Court. Is she the right choice?
I don't know which way it happened. Either the moment was made for her or she was made for the moment. But there is nobody better for that seat.
All right. Now tell us why.
Sure. So the first thing is Amy Coney Barrett is a legal genius, to put it frankly. She was just the top of her class in law school. She clerked for Justice Scalia. The professor who wrote her letter of recommendation wrote a one-line letter. He just said, Justice Scalia, she's the best student I ever had. She went on to practice. She had a stupendous career in academia as an expert in federal courts and questions of stare decisis. And now she's rightly a judge on the Seventh Circuit, where she has just been turning out some of the most thoughtful and comprehensive judicial work out there. And like you said in your introduction, this is work that shows that she is a constitutional originalist. She believes that a judge is not a legislator, that judges should judge cases. And like she said from her last confirmation hearing, and I'll read you a quote, I do not believe it is lawful for a judge to impose her personal beliefs on the law from whatever source they come.
Well, that sounds nice and clean. So here's my question. Since I know we've already heard some of the language that the Democrats, one of them a U.S. Senator Jeff Merkley, has already said, this is the third legislative branch of government. We need to keep it as a legislative branch. So they're actually saying out loud, we want the Supreme Court to write new law. And I've given my audience examples where I believe they have written new law where the Congress has said we won't write it. I don't want the Supreme Court writing law. So since they don't have any objections other than that and her Catholicism, is there anything in her record of decisions that they're going to point to and say this was a flawed decision or she really messed this one up, other than on issues of ideology, where she may say, no, Obamacare, if the case, and there are cases coming up to the court where she might say, no, Obamacare is not constitutional. Or she might say, no, as a matter of fact, Roe v. Wade is not constitutional, and we don't find a right of that kind of privacy that gives the United States the ability to see a million babies murdered every single year. They object to her on ideology. But can they really object to anything in her legal record of writing decisions?
No, I'm really surprised. I hadn't heard that quote that they're. Oh,
I just saw it a couple of hours ago, and I plan to highlight it. The guy is from my region. I will read you the exact quote so nobody thinks I'm like extending off something, because there are times I'll say he's saying this and I think he means this. Here's an actual quote from Merkley's comments. For years, the Supreme Court has been essentially a third legislative body deciding women's rights, workers' rights, health care, climate, and more. The goal today is to lock in advantage for the privileged and powerful for an entire generation to come. Well, that's flawed in a couple of ways. First, it sees the court as a lawmaking body rather than a law-deciding body. And it also says that the law only works for the privileged and the powerful. Last time I checked, there are plenty of in fact, if you were to say, when the Supreme Court makes its decisions, many times people who are not powerful, people who are not privileged, end up benefiting from the decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court because the court says the law and the Constitution say, GianCarlo, you win, or Lars Larson, you win, and that's exactly what the court should do. Tell us what the Constitution says.
You know what that quote just reminds me, what shows me, is that progressives are incapable of seeing the court as incapable of seeing judges as actually being judges. But there are judges out there like Amy Coney Barrett who really think that they can and should be objective, that they should apply the Constitution and the laws as written and not be super legislators. But, progressives are just terrified that a conservative judge will behave the way they want progressive judges to behave. And that's why you see all these attacks on Amy Coney Barrett for her religious views, for her personal views. But they cannot comprehend that to a judge like Amy Coney Barrett, those things don't matter.
Well, and GianCarlo, I've told my audience, you're the legal expert, not me. But I've said nowhere in the Constitution does it say you have a right to privacy. And previous courts or previous, Supreme Court decisions have found, I think they use the term penumbra, which means, kind of like under the big, wide sweep of the Constitution, even though the Constitution never mentions privacy, we found a right to privacy that's suggested by what the Constitution says. I don't want the court doing that. If it ain't in the Constitution, amend it and put it in. And if you can't get that done, stick with the original document.
That's absolutely right. Because in a democracy like ours, when the government is going to be in the business of making up rights, the people want a say, and they don't get a say in the Supreme Court. And that's why the Supreme Court should not be a legislative body.
And yet we've got senators talking about it. And, I'll tell you, GianCarlo, in a lot of ways, Senator Merkley, who's not exactly the sharpest tool in the shed, so it shouldn't surprise anybody that he'd actually say out loud what a lot of us have been saying for years. The Congress has not, the Democrats have been very unsuccessful in getting what they want out of the Congress, which is the right way to write laws or even to amend the Constitution. So because of that, they go to the courts, and they get the courts to invent the things they can't get on Capitol Hill. You can see that as beneficial to your side, depending on which side you're on, but you can't say it's legitimate. The court isn't there to write laws. We want people's representatives who have to answer to us either every 2 years or every 6 years to be writing the laws. That way, when they write a really numbskull law, we can say, you get to lose your seat in the Senate or the House. With the judges, we can't do that.
That's right. And that's why judges like Judge hopefully soon to be Justice Amy Coney Barrett are so important, because they take the stand and say, no, look, judges have a particular role. We're not accountable to the people through the democratic process. And so we have a lot of authority that we need to wield with responsibility. We need to respect the democratic process by interpreting the laws as written. We need to respect the constitutional process and the way that the people have said they want to be governed by respecting what's written.
GianCarlo, do you think there's anything that the senators can do to delay this process past November 3rd?
It looks like no, but, I would have told you up until days before the Kavanaugh vote that nothing was going to derail this. So, we've seen some dirty tricks already going after her children and her adoptions. They're going to pull dirty tricks. It's the only reasonable expectation anyone can have after we saw them do it with, Bork and Thomas and Estrada and Van Dyke and Barrett the first time. So, it doesn't look like it. If, we play by the rules, nothing's going to stop Barrett, but I don't count on Senate Democrats to play by the rules.